If you've watched baseball before, it's almost guaranteed you've seen players freak out in one way or another. Maybe it's because of an ejection they feel they didn't deserve, or one they did deserve and they're just angry anyways. Or a wild pitch the ump called a strike because their eyes were closed. Players getting mad at other players, or just generally getting frustrated and taking their anger out on the nearest inanimate object. Freakouts are nothing new in baseball, but no one's really done it like Paul O'Neill did it. He freaked out even when he succeeded sometimes. Like, watch this one for example. It's the bottom of the 10th inning. Paul's batting for the Yankees against their arch rival, the Red Sox, down by 1 run. Paul thinks he just made out number 2, so he groans and throws his bat off to the side in disgust. He actually hit the game-tying home run. Have you ever seen a guy chuck his bat in frustration as he makes this face on a clutch home run? In this video, we're going to be talking about Paul O'Neill and how much he loved to complain. But at the end of the day, he got his job done and people respected him for that. One of the Yankees' former managers, Joe Torre, who was there with O'Neill, went on record saying, "I always loved his passion, obviously. You'd hear the noise, bang, bang, boom." Talked about him destroying water coolers. "I used to say to him, it's all well and good, but if you hurt yourself and can't play tomorrow, I'm gonna kill you." We'll get a bit more into it later, but he really just has a vendetta against water coolers. As SNY described it, or SNE if you will, when recapping his career, outbursts were part of the O'Neill package. He was an intense guy in every sense of the word. What that stemmed from was a hyperfixation on every little detail of his craft. If something went wrong, he noticed, and he wasn't shy about showing he noticed. Like, this is a guy who, if he didn't get a hit for 2 days, would ask his teammates if they thought he'd ever get a hit ever again. Old coaches and managers say that sometimes he would just walk by them mumbling whatever to himself. He's probably just upset he wasn't the greatest baseball player to ever live, ever. And it's not like the guy was bad at baseball. In fact, he was pretty dang good. So we do need to establish for a bit Paul O'Neill's career as a baseball player and how much of an impact he had on the field. Because I mean, it's extremely abnormal for someone to both be known for their crankiness and intense demeanor, but also one of the best players on the field in every game he played in. And to do that, I've invited a special guest to join me on this. Take it away, Mr. Baseball Historian.
Hey guys, Baseball Historian here. If you haven't heard of me before, allow me to clarify that I am 1, not a real historian, and 2, not a real baseball. I am also not, technically, a real baseball historian. That person would be official MLB historian John Thorne, seen here getting ready for a Kurt Vonnegut lookalike convention. What I am, however, is a Yankee fan, which, I've decided, more than qualifies me to tell the life story of Paul O'Neill. As a child of the 2000s, though, I never got to see O'Neill play in person. To be honest, I know him mostly from reruns of Seinfeld. But there was a time before that, when Paul O'Neill was one of the most potent bats in baseball. A time before Yankee Stadium plaques, before TV deals, before Michael Kay. A time when Paul O'Neill was a warrior. Now, I only have a few minutes to do this, so I'm gonna give you the lightning round version of Paul O'Neill's career. Okay, you ready? 1963. Paul is born in Ohio to a medical technician and an excavator. No, the other kind. His father, Chick, teaches him to play baseball on the ball field in their yard. Paul learns to hit the other way by avoiding the maple tree planted in right field. Paul is an intense competitor from a young age, playing football and basketball in addition to baseball. Here he is in the 8th grade in 1977.
It's number 23, Paul O'Neill.
He's drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, his hometown team, in 1981. He plays his first full season in 1987, mostly as a pinch hitter. Manager Pete Rose makes him the right fielder in 88, and with young players like O'Neill and Eric Davis, Cincinnati is poised to break out in 89. They hit a small hurdle that summer, however, when their manager is banned from the sport for life. Under new skipper Lou Piniella, the Reds win the World Series in 1990, their first in over a decade. Piniella's fiery attitude appeals to Paul, and he hits 28 home runs in 91. The Reds, seeing this, tell O'Neill to hit for more power. This change in approach fails completely, and he has his worst season yet in 92. When he's traded to the Yankees for prospect Roberto Kelly, Paul is heartbroken. Once he meets team captain Don Mattingly, though, his outlook changes for the better. Mattingly's leadership will be a major influence on O'Neill, whose intensity makes him a fan favorite in New York. He begins in 1994 with an 8-game hitting streak, and is batting .448 by the end of April. He stays above .400 until mid-June, while the Yankees play their best baseball in years. Then, in August, it all comes to an end. Paul O'Neill's .359 average during the strike-shortened season leads the AL, and New York rewards him with a 4-year contract. He pays them back with another strong season in 95. The Yankees lose Mattingly to retirement in 96, hire Joe Torre as manager, and then proceed to win the division, the ALCS, and eventually their first World Series since 1978. From 97 to 99, Paul O'Neill is worth 3.7 wins a season. He puts up an OPS plus of 124 during that span. In other words, during the peak of the steroid era, O'Neill is still 24% better than the average hitter. The 1999 regular season sees O'Neill hit .285 with an impressive 110 RBI, while the Yankees punched their ticket to yet another fall classic. At the moment, though, Paul has bigger things to worry about. His father had suffered a heart attack that summer and has been hospital-bound for weeks. Paul, himself nursing a cracked rib, sleeps in the room with his dad. With Game 1 of the series tied in the 8th, Paul comes to bat with the bases loaded. Atlanta has brought in flamethrower and all-around bastard, John Rocker, who's held lefties to just 140 at the plate this year. With the infield in, O'Neill sends a ground ball through the first base gap, scoring 2. The Yankees win 4-1. When the series returns to New York for Game 3, Paul stays with his father until the moment he has to leave for the stadium. He hits a game-tying single in the first inning, and the Yankees win a 10-inning nail-biter. A few hours later, at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City, Chick O'Neill passes away. The Yankees sweep the Braves. Amid the celebrations, Joe Torre pulls an exhausted O'Neill into a hug. "Your dad got to watch this one," he tells him. Paul breaks down in his manager's arms. He considers retirement that winter, but returns for the 2000 season. He has another strong year at the plate, and the Yankees win a third consecutive ring. O'Neill comes back for one more year, but tells reporters that he intends to retire after the 2001 season. Despite missing 25 games to a fractured foot, Paul O'Neill returns in full force in the ALCS against the 116-game-winning Mariners. With the World Series tied at 2 games apiece, Paul O'Neill takes the field for Game 5 at Yankee Stadium. The sold-out crowd erupts into chants. With tears in his eyes, he tips his cap to the home fans. They beg him for just one more year. Unfortunately, it isn't in the cards. True to his word, Paul O'Neill retires following the 01 season. He ends his career with 281 home runs, 451 doubles, and over 1,200 RBI. In the years after calling it quits, he accepts a job as color commentator for the Yankees, where he's worked ever since. Whew. Okay, I think that's everything. I might have missed a few kickballs here and hit water coolers there, but other than that, I covered most of the bases. Pun fully intended. And you know what? This isn't my video anyway. Here's FICO.
Thanks, Mr. Historian. Now that we've broken down a bit more of Paul O'Neill's career, we gotta talk more about what made this guy particularly interesting. And that is, of course, the freakouts. Let's start off by talking about arguably one of his most famous freakouts. On July 5th, 1989, in a game against the Phillies, O'Neill, who was playing for the Reds at the time, messed up a routine scoop with the Phillies in position to score to end the game. Out of frustration, he literally kicked the ball. Now, this wouldn't be super memorable if it wasn't for the fact that he kicked it to the infield and saved the game. It's not every day you see a guy throw a tantrum in the outfield and it ends up being the best thing that could have happened for the team. I mean, just watch Nyjer Morgan.
Adam hits it high to center field, pretty deep. Near the wall, he reaches up, he can't make the play, and he fires his glove towards the ground.
Also, because of this, Paul's baseball reference page says he kicks right-footed. No one else's page points out what foot they kick with, only Paul's. I thought that was pretty funny. Throwing a tantrum literally made up for his mistake and kept the last run from scoring. You can't make this stuff up. Or kept him from scoring for a bit at least, because Philadelphia did eventually score and win this game. But, I mean, come on, that's still ridiculous. This guy has some iconic freakouts besides just this, too. This one in particular I like because of how much he looks like a cartoon character with his movements. The way he moves when he's screaming at an umpire about a call is borderline majestic. It's like he's doing a Broadway play, but instead of Hamilton, it's helmet toss. I'm just gonna leave. Or this fight between O'Neill and John Marzano where he gets shoved back and literally rips the umpire's face mask off. Then the ump just steps back like, yeah, I'm not having none of that. The fight with John Marzano was interesting because Marzano was playing for the Seattle Mariners at the time. The Mariners were managed by Lou Piniella, whose name I mispronounced the last time I said it on the channel. Lou used to be Paul's manager in Cincinnati. So he understood that you could easily get under Paul's skin. and he weaponized it, both on the field and in the media. It's very rare in baseball these days you see managers openly calling players crybabies, let alone players they used to manage themselves. But Lou did, and only Paul could have that reputation follow him throughout his career. Oh, and after this he also added the words, and I quote, "He cries all the time." And also, that thing I mentioned earlier about water coolers, that wasn't a joke. If he struck out and you were in the dugout, there's a 50-50 chance you might get splashed. This dude just could not keep himself from getting thrown out. Like, bro, the umpire could have easily thrown him out here, but he gave him a chance to walk back to the dugout, but, you know, he had to do his patented O'Neal helmet throw, and just like that, boom, he's gone.
You know what? Don't do that, because I got to do that.
Like, here's a good one. Paul got ejected for throwing his helmet here in a game in Miami. He defended himself by saying he didn't think he did anything wrong and was confused for why they tossed him, completely assuming that chucking your helmet into the ground mere feet from the umpire was totally fine. Paul didn't think it was too much though. In his words, talking about a completely different time when he got thrown out for spiking his helmet down, if they kick everybody out who's throwing a helmet, they better expand the roster, because they'll need more players. The main reason Paul O'Neal pops off so often is because he has extremely high standards that he sets for himself. He could play the best game of his life, but if he swings at one pitch that he shouldn't have and strikes out because of it, it's gonna be war for the first thing he sees in the dugout. This could be because of the competitive nature of his household growing up. O'Neal was the youngest of his brothers, so of course, as it goes, he was messed with and picked on all the time. He was quoted saying, "It was a love-hate thing. You love your brothers, but you hate losing to them. I can still hear my mom yelling, 'Quit teasing the baby,' because we were playing basketball or something. They let me score 18 points and then they'd reel off 21 straight points to win." This competitive nature and pure passion for the game of baseball drove him to becoming an insanely good baller, as well as having some of the most iconic freakouts of all time. Just like many players, when O'Neal retired, his love of the game was still very much there. As much as people criticize him for his freakouts and his constant whining when it comes to his game, he is still very much respected as a Yankees legend, and honestly, I'd say he definitely deserves that. On August 9th, 2014, the Yankees created a plaque for O'Neal in Monument Park, and as a sign of respect, they retired his number, 21, on August 21st, 2022. And also, they brought out a water cooler with a bat piercing through it with his retired number, because of course they did. Say what you want about the guy, but in my opinion, his passion for the game was unmatched. They called him the Warrior for a reason. Think about how boring baseball would be if every player was just straight-laced, play the game and nothing more. It would definitely be more boring, but I mean, to be fair, I'm sure the dugout water coolers are pretty happy he's gone. Also, just before we finish this video, Mike has a little story he wants to share. Take it away, Mike.
Hi, I have a fun Paul O'Neal story to share. So, I have an ex-girlfriend who used to work in a restaurant. One day we were out and she was telling me how one of the regulars there she found out was like a baseball player, and she knew I was like a baseball freak. So she gets a picture when she finds out his name and is like, "Oh, do you know who this is?" And it's Paul O'Neal, so of course I know who Paul O'Neal is because I'm a nutcase. But like, I pull out my phone and I show the clip of Paul O'Neal kicking the ball to home plate where he's like raging into success. Then we progressed into the clips with the water coolers, and I could just tell I would never forget this, ever. Thank you, Paul O'Neal. I mean that. You should have seen the look on this poor girl's face, because like, she's getting ready to tell me like what a nice dude he is, he treats her well, which I appreciate him for that, and she was terrified. Thankfully it was harmless, because dealing with him at the restaurant, she was pretty insistent that he's like a good guy who treated everybody well, so I appreciate him for that, like I said. But hey, it made for a nice excuse to show the Paul O'Neal kicking the ball clip to somebody who had never seen it before. Always puts a smile on my face. I love it so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As always, my name is SRS FICO, and if you made it all the way to the end, comment your favorite baseball freakout. I want some more clips I can sit down and chuckle at. Sorry to have a downer at the end of the video, but one of my old friends has stomach cancer and they're refusing to treat him because he wasn't able to make his last payment. If you're able to make any donation, no matter how small, anything helps. The link will be in the description. It's not looking too great right now, so like I said, anything helps, but if you can't donate, I completely understand. Anyways, have a lovely day, gamers. Peace.